Ukraine, we moved to Asia Minor, or Anatolia. I decided to go there before talking about the Danube region, because I don't want to give the impression of being Eurocentric. Asia Minor can hardly be disregarded when we are talking about humanity's earliest cultures. Being the connecting region between three continents, it has always been a passageway, and one that has been subject to many wars and strife. It is so even this day. And in the ancient world, Anatolia was the seat of the kingdoms and the cities of Thrace, or Thrace, how do you call it? Bithynia, Paglagonia, Eloia, Phrygia, Cilicia, Pontus, Urartu, Armenia, Assyria, Cilicia, Pamphylia, Lycia, Pidysia, Lycaonia, Caria, Mysia, Ionia, Lydia, and Troy is the most famous of all those. But yeah, since we go back way further back in time, I want to consider the larger area, including the lower Caucasus and the Kurdish region of northwest Iran. The complete area is littered with petroglyphs, like literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions, or at least a million. An uncountable herd of ibex goats, human figures, these Quaterman figures, geometrical patterns, and the swastika here and there. The Armenians may claim to be the area of which both humanity and the swastika originate from, but I am certainly not going to dispute the importance of the region in that sense, but I get an icky feeling when I have to deal with a narrow concept inspired by nationalist pride, especially when we go back in history long before the nation was even existent. Almost 10 years back, a series of fossils was unearthed in the south of Georgia, and that's very close to the northern Armenian border. These remains prove the presence of a now extinct Homo erectus in the Eurasian region to almost 1.8 million years back. And these are very important because they are the oldest hominid found outside of Africa. So yeah, it struck me a bit to hear that these people, the Manisi people, the place that they have been found is that would later develop into the Silk Road over time. But then again, people always use walked paths for obvious reasons, like accessibility. Fact is that through the millennia, many humans have walked these paths, and it is very hard to get an accurate picture, especially because there is not that much archaeological material available from sites there from the Neolithicum. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe does seem to have changed this, although still little is trickling down into the mainstream, of course, or is taken up into general education. Add to that the difficulty with dating petroglyphs, and it becomes even harder to attribute them to a specific group. There are basically two methods that they use for dating, absolute method and a relative one. The absolute dating utilizes one or more of variety of chronometric techniques, like spectrometry or optically stimulated luminescence, lichenometry, micro erosion, micro stratification, Ali. Uh, and then there's relative dating methods, sort of circumstantial evidence that they are gathering, like considering astronomy back at that time. Maybe there are clues, or when a site is found in a vicinity that uh, maybe gives more clues and that they can connect for some reason to the petroglyphs. But it's clear that considering all the factors, dating will take place with a large margin of error, sometimes encompassing millennia. Yeah, that's pretty horrible. States and nations, and they always carry a long history of forced assimilation and the never ceasing economical and or geopolitical developments in which building dams and more dams fits in perfectly. It offers an expedient result as cultural diversity disappears forever. The newest dam project of Ilisu, shown earlier, just being an example of that. The Turkish state may try to show itself considerate by saving some bigger monuments, like this one here. We can only guess what has been lost, on the other hand. Archaeologists working in the area are trying very hard to get international attention for the historical treasure in Asia Minor. Um, so it gets the value it actually deserves. The city states still have no place in the mainstream or general education. Before going to the subject of the Armenian alphabet, I want to point out shortly that the larger part of the swastika petroglyphs are found in Western Asia Minor, in Azerbaijan, Armenia, and the region that is now called Kurdistan and overlaps Turkey, northwest Iran, and northeast Iraq. In the latter region, we find another place often referenced when addressing the many places the swastika can be found as an ornament, and that is Samara. Samara was located near the modern day Kirkuk along the Tigris. There are two examples of the pottery that from that culture showing the symbol, and I have not found anything more until now. And I think it's important to note that places like Samara or other places towards the Anatolian Iranian border were not pastoral, like these city states. I mean, and that, yeah, I would assume the swastika to be connected with herding because of all the goats, of course, and but yeah, this is supposedly not happening in the city states. It's not something that I'm saying. It's researchers who point that out, but. I will look into that area more later on after addressing the Indus or Sarasvati cultures. Suffice to add, the time period we are talking about is the beginning of what is called the Neolithic wet period, which goes from 7000 BC more or less to 3500 BC. And these arid zones of the Middle East during that time period would have turned into a savanna rather than the dry or stony desert like kind of landscape we see now. But let's go back up north for a bit. The Armenian language is a language that came into existence through what scientists, linguists call aerial features. It comes down to a language that is a mixture of several other languages, or proto-languages if you will. And if you want to read up on that, look into Grassmann's law. The Greco-Armenian Aryan language, albeit hypothetical, is another example of such assembled language, so to say. What is important for us now, apart from giving another example of the diversity of habitation and passage of people or groups of people, is that the written form exists only since the 4th century AD. The Armenian historians tell us about a man called Mesrop Mashtots. He was a linguist, a theologian, and of noble descent, and he is the one who was the first to make a writing, an Armenian, who, let's say, turned the Armenian language into a written form. Armenians will also tell you he wrote down Georgian, but likely Georgians will deny this. The script is said to be rooted on the many petroglyphs dating back between the 5th and the 2nd millennium BC, to insist, as some do, that it was the swastika alone that forms the basis of this alphabet is in all probability some bit exaggerated, yeah. One of Mesrop's pupils, Moses Kurenatsi, is the first Armenian historian. Both men belong to the Holy Translators, the men that, these are the guys who translated the Bible into Armenian. Other sources speak of earlier mentions of the Armenian written language, going back as far as the 2nd century BC. But that probably refers to Mitraic script. Mitraic script is mainly used for ecclesiastical scripture, and I will look into Mitras in connection with the swastika another time. What I must add before closing off is that we see a name appearing for the swastika, namely Arevaka, which means crooked cross. Another name is Gerkach. Often Armenians will claim the swastika is merely a simplified representation of their national symbol, the solar wheel. This I will try to address in another episode when going a bit deeper into the origins of the Armenian nations and the possible connections with other nations in the West. For now, I close off this chapter and I will move back to Eastern Europe, Eastern European contemporary cultures. I hope you will join me then, and thank you very much for watching. And excuse me for the terrible pronunciation at times. I'm doing my best. Have a nice day all.